And we're live today. Welcome, everybody, to the Power of Man podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. You all know that. I'm your host. Love being here. And I want to thank all you folks for sticking with us when I was away healing, which most of you have heard the story of, so I'm not going to bother you with that. But I do want to say, especially in the last week, I've received so many messages and, well wishes and prayers and everything else. You folks really have reached out, and I just want to say thank you. And I want to let you know that all that was not in vain. We are back. We are bad. We are bigger. We are moving forward bolder. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being there. And I'm not going to let you down. We're here now. So a couple of quick housekeeping items. Most of you guys know this already, but if you ever need to reach us and you want to message us, Instagram is usually the best way. It's where we get most of our messages. It's at Power of Man Podcast. All one word. That's right. Real simple. At Power of Man Podcast. You can email us if you're old school like I am and you want to do emails. You can put us Power of Man Podcast at gmail.com. Or you can find us under Facebook, and that's just under my name. And you guys all know what that is. And I'm not going to spell it because you can look in the show notes if you want to find me. Also wanted to invite everybody once again. The Power of Man Within group is open. We are accepting new members. If you'd like to apply, go to Power of Man Within on Facebook. Real simple. The link is always in our show notes. All of you guys, husbands, fathers, or just men who aren't either yet, please fill out the application, send it in. We'd love to have you. Like-minded people are always welcome. So love to have you folks in our group. We have a fantastic guest with us today. I've had a couple conversations with this gentleman. Very interesting guy and very different from some of the other interviews we've done. I think you're going to really enjoy this one. Please welcome to the show the host of the Pastors Thriving podcast, business and ministry coach, Pastor Kevin Elworth. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for welcoming me today. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be on.
It's absolutely my pleasure. We had a really, really good pre-interview call. I
Hmm.
thought, I don't even normally do those, but, as I sat there and talked to you, I mean, all I could think was, this guy is a kindred spirit. I mean, we're like on the same wavelength. I love sitting here, everything you had to say. I mean,
Likewise.
honestly, I could have talked to you for hours the way that went.
Likewise, sir. Likewise. There's so much story to share. When you get into you start getting into people's stories, you're just like, wow, God, wow. Like how is that possible? So
Right? Exactly.
uh, I
And
love it.
it's funny. I mean, I turned a while ago towards talking a lot more about God, not being
Mhm.
afraid of how that, acted with everybody. And I quit worrying about the folks who had a problem with it and started realizing I needed to serve the folks who needed it. And
Yeah,
so we've really ramped that up in the last probably 50, 60 episodes because that's been my experience.
I love it.
Almost lost both my boys in different car accident situations. And as if that wasn't enough to wake me up, and almost lost my daughter when she was a teenager to a
Wow.
heart surgery. You would
Oh,
think
wow.
after all of your kids having near-death experiences, you would have woken up at that point.
Hmm.
I needed to have my own near-death experience here a little while ago to sort of
Wow.
fully pull the drapes back because I'm 54, I'm Italian. Apparently, I'm a little slow on the uptake. And so God basically said, I'm only going to tell you this one more time.
Isn't
Get
it
to work.
amazing, like
Yeah.
sometimes how subtle those messages can be, and they kind of increase with intensity until like God gets our attention.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
All right. Well, enough about me. I brought you on here to talk about you. You've got a really interesting story. You do some really neat work. You are a business and ministry coach.
Hmm.
You work with pastors to, increase their um, parish, their
Sure.
members, that type of thing. Um, how does somebody get into not only, becoming a pastor, okay, because I know
Mhm.
there's a calling in there somewhere, but then once you're there, making a transition from being a pastor, in place, doing your
Uh-huh.
thing, to coaching other pastors. Frankly, I haven't heard of this before, so it's new to me, and I'm
Mhm.
I'm really intrigued by what it is you're
Sure.
doing.
You know, Leadership in ministry is a really, really tough place to be. It's difficult. I mean, to be honest with you, there's a mental stigma to a pastor in that field because he feels like he has to be perfect at his job. He's not allowed to be able to show vulnerability or weakness. And if he does show signs of transparency, there's always something that he's reserving because honestly, he doesn't feel the freedom to be able to be real and raw. My question always was, okay, I'm the pastor of this place. Who's my pastor? Who do I go to? Where does the pastor turn when the pastor needs help? And we can go to some counselors and different things like that, but there's always that mental stigma that says you're not free to be 100% real. And honestly, I had just an off the cuff conversation with a friend of mine, another pastor in Virginia Beach one day. This was like post COVID, so we're comparing COVID stories about how did you survive COVID and how did your church recover from this mess and all that. And in that conversation, he says to me, he says, "Man, Kevin, you need to talk to a counselor. You should really, you should consider hiring a coach." And that really caught me off guard. I'd never heard that before. And so I was like, all right, well, do you have someone to recommend? Can you recommend someone to me? And so I took his suggestion. I immediately followed up with this idea, and I reached out to this person. I ended up hiring my own coach. I don't know, she's probably in her mid 70s, lives in Frisco, Texas. And I've had a great connection with this person over Zoom. Never met her in person. I probably never will. But she has spoken more life into me than any person or pastor ever has. And it so struck me that when the Lord kind of came to me and said, "Hey, Kevin, you're done pastoring. You're leaving this." I instantly, my question was, "Okay, God, but what am I going to do?" And because what does a pastor do when a pastor's done doing pastoring? And honestly, I feel like that's why a lot of pastors, no offense, but they overstay their welcome because they don't know, what am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do next? Um, Thankfully, I had done some work on that, and I discovered that my passion in life was really helping people experience an unbelievable God in an amazing way. And so naturally for me, it was like, okay, God, if I have a blank check here and you're going to tell me I can do whatever I want, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go coach people and help them figure out how to accomplish and get involved in the significance of life that they really want to, because that's what I wanted. And naturally, it kind of came down to like, I want to help some pastors in this too, because ministry is tough and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to feel like you're on your own and, your family is the employment of the church, that you and your kids and your wife are at the beck and call of the church at any given moment. Doesn't have to be that way. And so what's the process? How do you navigate through that? How do you get to freedom in your life? And honestly, but my slogan for my podcast is strategies for lead pastors towards growth in money and ministry. And I put the money concept in there because pastor, you shouldn't have to feel like you're held hostage to your paycheck. You can invent a different way to earn your cash from another source. And my family and I started answering that question about 15 years ago. And so when it came time when the Lord said to me, "Hey, you've done what I've asked you to do, it's time to move on," I didn't worry about the fact of losing all of my paycheck in one decision. I still had a bunch of paycheck coming from other places, and that felt really good. I just wonder, how much more life could a pastor have if he didn't have to worry about, you hear those horror stories where a church board comes in and he's like, "Hey, you're out." And
Right.
instantly you've just lost your job and you've lost your source of life. And what are you supposed to do now?
Is that something that you help pastors with in terms of like having, I don't necessarily know if you want to call them side hustles,
Yeah,
especially when you're talking about being a pastor, but alternative forms of income so that they can
100%.
relax a little bit and focus more on the ministry and less on their income?
Yes, I do. And it's one of my passions, honestly. We've done it several different ways. And we don't have to get into those details today, but we've done it several different ways. And sometimes it can result in like an extra work or extra job. Most people, pastors, think of like bivocational. So they're working somewhere and they're pastoring. Who has time for that? I mean, come on, let's figure out a way to get some passivity in income rather than multiple jobs. There are ways to do this. It just
Hmm.
takes some creativity. And to be honest with you, one of my favorite phrases right now is you don't know what you don't know, but you're guilty of what you don't know. What does that mean? It means that you don't get the freedom to be able to drive down the road and get pulled over, and the officer be like, "Do you know why I pulled you over? You were speeding." You don't get to be like, "Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know the speed limit." No, you're guilty whether you know it or not. the same rule applies to life. There are rules to life, and you are being judged by the rules of life, whether you know it or not. When I was pastoring, one of my favorite phrases to say is, what God said one time is good enough for a lifetime. You don't need God to come back at you and remind you of what he already said. He expects you to know that. I mean, you've got it in a book right in front of you. Look it up and go after it. And then don't make God rehearse the rules every time you get up and remind you, hey, you got to brush your teeth today. You got to make your bed today. We all have those things with our kids that we remind them, hey, you're supposed to do this. God's not coming along making sure that you brush your teeth.
Right.
You've got to be able to occupy the rules of life. And some of these rules are designed for you to actually win. So, man, let's get after it.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And, talking about kids, it's something we both know a little bit about.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got a
for sure.
few. Yeah. So, um, good deal. So you made the jump, if you don't mind me asking, you
Yeah,
basically left being a pastor, made the jump full force, just like picked up both feet, jumped off the cliff, said, "Hey, we'll figure it out on the way down."
I did. And honestly, I probably did it a little bit hastily. I tend to be I tend to be a risk taker. And so when I sensed that the Lord was telling me that I had the blinker turned on for this, now just a little bit of framing, we were building our house at the time, our dream house, a $500,000 house. And the Lord in this time frame, the Lord decides to come to me and be like, hey, you need to quit your job. So I had to set up all the sequence of events to be able to turn in my resignation. And I felt like I was supposed to be like a Band-Aid ripped off. I wasn't going to give them a 6 month window. I literally walked into my boss's office and I slid a letter across his desk and I gave him a 30-day notice that I was leaving my job. And they didn't know what to do with that. They did not see that coming.
Hmm.
It didn't matter. I felt like if I stayed, I was disobeying, and I needed to venture into this and trust the Lord with all of my heart. And I'll be honest with you, single hardest decision I've ever made was leaving behind the security of a consistent paycheck to venture into the world of entrepreneurial work and not know how are we going to survive? How are we going to make this work? But I literally felt like the Lord was saying, this is what I want you to do. I will take care of you. I will sustain your life. And that was 21 months ago. And I'll be honest with you, we're still alive. I'm still in my $500,000 house. We've been able to make every payment. We've incurred a little bit of debt, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that it matters. I know that the Lord is faithful and he's good and he's kind and he's providing in really crazy subtle ways that I didn't see coming. It's just going to come. I just believe it.
That's fantastic. In terms of asking, the pragmatic, part of it, you had some passive income when you were at your church before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did that help to kind of make the decision a little, knowing that at least you had a couple of bucks coming in from the passive
Uh,
stuff? Did that
I
give
mean,
you any
undoubtedly, yes.
freedom at all, to
Yes.
maybe help you jump? So,
100%. 100%. If I didn't have that, it would have been a much harder stretch. I probably would have felt like I needed to go out and get a UPS job right away. And man, that's going to bear a lot of, I don't want to say shame, but it's a lot different.
yeah,
Driving a truck or loading a UPS truck. I used to do that when I was in college, and to resort back to that, um, and there's almost a bit of shame there. But yes, it definitely helped. And that's why I'm a huge advocate for pastors right now. Start asking the income question on some level.
yeah,
Get to a spot where you can say, okay, what can I do to increase to produce income? For me, it started with one of the ways that we did this was buy a rental property. I literally got a house for free that I turned into a rental property and pays me every month. Now, it's not enough to live on, but it's
right,
a little bit. And I can show you how to do it. There are deals to be found everywhere. You just have to look for them.
right. Well, and that's great because you're out there trying to help, these other pastors, and you have walked the walk.
Right.
You're not selling them some concept. You lived it, you breathed it. It actually helped you make your move. So, there's an awful
100%.
lot of that's why you come off the way you come off, to be honest. I mean, because you come off very authentic and very real, and it's because you did this.
I love it.
So, yeah, we've got a couple of pastors that are in our Power Man Within, private group. I know we have more than that listen because they have messaged me.
Hmm.
Plenty of times when I've had some guests on that they felt they needed to talk to me about. But
I love it.
all that aside, so I know there's people out there that are listening, but any of these people who are thinking about that, you really are, the real deal when it comes to that. So congrats.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Very, 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 very cool. Now you had the calling to go and help other pastors do this, so you've
Yeah.
built a coaching business for this, and I know you also coach, owners and managers of businesses that are
Hmm.
not pastors, but your main niche is with helping pastors get past these things. Again, I know you were called to do it, but that's such a unique slot.
Yeah.
How does that come about? How do you start building that?
Relationships. Everything is built around relationships. In fact, one of my favorite phrases is the idea of, I don't know where I picked this up from. Somebody said this, but your network determines your net worth. So get to know people. The relationships are literally the facet of life, and so value every relationship. Not every one of them is going to stick around. They're not going to stay there. I left behind a lot of people, and there's just no connection there anymore. But get out and find ways to connect and network and meet people. Um, the core of it is this, and this is really the message that I want to convey to your audience and to any audience that I can get in front of. But literally, the last message that the Lord gave me before I left, my last sermon that I preached was on Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Everyone knows that verse, right? It's plastered on every wall in America somewhere, right? It's a determination phrase, but I don't think we understand the implications of how powerful that mentality can become. And to illustrate it, I want to tell you a story. So, June 2nd, 2016, we walked into a maternity ward at a hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida. We passed by the windows of this maternity ward and we see this little baby girl who is like gray as a ghost, man. She did not look healthy. And I literally mentally remember saying, man, I don't know whose baby that is. She's a little ugly and she's got some, she's got some medical problems. I hope she's going to be okay. Well, the implications of what I was thinking in that moment were going to come full circle because that was the baby girl we were about to adopt.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
to get us to that spot, that's, normal pregnancy is what, 9 months, right? 9 months, give or take a few days, and pending everything goes as healthy as it needs to be. This one for us was like 3.5 years. You see, we started on the adoption journey to privately adopt this baby girl back in like 2013. And it started with my wife asking a question, and she just said, do you think that it would be possible for us to go through a private adoption? And I was like, well, sure, let's investigate it. Now, I'll be honest with you, my mindset was so constrained and restrained in that moment. I had no idea what I was up against. We had no money. I was pastoring. We couldn't even afford to live. I literally had gone to my wife a year before that and said, you're going to have to, we are $700 a month short of our budget. And she's like, she went to work. She figured it out. She's like, I'm going to start a daycare and we'll help figure this out. So for her to come to me and be like, hey, I'd like to press into private adoption. Do you know how much it costs to adopt a baby?
I
I
don't.
mean, it's insane, bro. Like the cases that we were being presented started at like 25,000 bucks. The
Whoa.
most expensive one we got was like $65,000. Now, ask me the question, where does all that money go? I have no idea. I have no idea because I know the baby mama doesn't get it. Um,
Sounds like there's a
but
lawyer involved somewhere.
there's a lot of hands
Yeah,
involved in this
there's a
process.
lawyer in there somewhere getting a
Yeah.
really nice payday for paperwork, but go ahead.
So to start getting these cases, these presentations, I mean, I'm like, I don't know, we can't do this. We can't. And I remember about 6 months into this deal, we kept getting presented cases. And every time they present you a case, you got to write another check to apply to be considered for that case. And so this is just painful over and over and over again. Finally, I told my wife about 6 months in, I was like, Crystal, we can't do this. And I declared impossibility over our situation. I can't do this. Now, I want you to consider for just a minute how often you say that phrase in your life. I can't, followed by any other words. Think about it. I can't handle that. I can't imagine that. I can't face that. I can't eat that. I can't lift that. I can't walk that. I can't run that. I can't, whatever. Now, here, let me insert my favorite one. I can't afford that. How often do we use that phrase in our life? And then here's what I want you to know. So you're conceptualizing the I can'ts of your life, and yet Paul says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Now, when I sit down with my coaching clients and we work through these kind of things together, the one thing that I find almost hands down with every single client is that I'm helping them break free from the restraints of their mind. I literally tell them the first session when we sit down, you know what? There's two phrases that you're not allowed to say anymore. I can't, followed by any other thing, and I don't know. Because what you're doing is you're declaring impossibility in your future. I want you to get your mind wrapped around that. When you say I can't, followed by any other thing, you're not talking about your current situation. You're actually declaring that over your future. Because now, at this point, you're not even willing to investigate the implications of possibility. You're saying it's not possible now, and it never will be possible. Henry Ford said, he who thinks he can't and he who thinks he can are both right.
Right.
Because you've just declared it ain't possible. It's just not possible. So let me go back to the hospital moment for a minute, okay?
Yeah.
So what happened was we finally got chosen. 2 years into this deal, we got an email from our adoption consultant, and they said to us, hey, your contract with us is about to expire. Do you want to allow this? Do you want to pursue it? Or do you want this dream to die? And man, that word cut to my heart. And my wife got this email and she looked at me and she said, what do you want to do, Kevin? Should we pray about this? And I said, sure, let's pray about it. And so we prayed about it for 15 seconds. And I said, we need to be in. We need to go after this. Now, nothing had inherently changed in our story. We still had no money. We still had, we were just 2 years down the road and I had grown a little bit in maturity. And thank God for a second chance, because we started getting presented with cases again, and they were still more than we could afford. But I had a new can-do mentality. And I said, I really believe that the Lord is in this and we need to go after it. And what the Lord brings us to, he will provide us with. And we said yes. And we finally got matched with a baby girl in St. Petersburg, Florida. And she chose us. And we had a 2-week window. They told us, the caseworker was like, hey, your baby's going to be born in the next 2 weeks. Be ready to go. You have to be there wherever this is in a 24-hour period. You need to be walking into that hospital. So we had 4 kids at the time. So these kids got to go somewhere. So we lined that up. We had bags packed by the door. I was checking flights every single day. And finally, the phone call came 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. My phone rings. I'm standing in line at Starbucks and I sent it to voicemail. I wasn't even thinking that we're waiting on this phone call that tells us our baby girl's been born. And so I checked the message, and sure enough, it's our caseworker. And she says, hey, she's born. You need to get on a plane today. And so I go on, race home. I tell my wife, hey, Crystal, it's go time. Let's go. And so we had to deal with all these logistics. And I'm sitting down at the table and I'm buying plane tickets and booking a hotel and booking a car and all this stuff. 3 hours later, we're running through the airport at Dulles National Airport in DC. And my wife's pushing this pink and black baby stroller. And we get through security and somebody at security yells at her and says, hey, you forgot something. There's nothing in your stroller. And she yells back, we're going to get our baby girl, man. She was just elated. We're the last ones on the plane, and we didn't get to sit together to share this emotional experience. But we finally get there, and we walk into this hospital, and we see this little gray girl, and she is that way because she tested positive for cocaine when she was born.
Oh,
she's going to spend the next 7 days in the neonatal intensive care unit to recover from testing positive for cocaine. Now, I'll be honest with you, today, this little girl is 8 years old and she is the light of our life. And people always ask me, so what are the effects of cocaine in a little girl that grows up? Nothing. In fact, I tell her today that it's her superpower. Like our kids know, they all know the story. In fact, she was our 4th adopted kid. Everyone in our family knows the story. There's no secrets here. She knows she was positive for cocaine when she was born. She is absolutely essential to our family. My life is changed because I finally said I can. Now, the biggest component in this is that her life changed too. Now, I'm part of the Maxwell team, and John Maxwell has this amazing statement. He says, success is found on the other side of yes. Oh my gosh, when I first heard him say that, that like revolutionized my thinking. I'd been living up to that point thinking that I got to say no to absolutely everything. But success is found on the other side of yes. Here's what I want
Mm.
to leave you with, right? I want you to analyze this over your story. Whose life doesn't change because you said I can't?
Your own,
Man, when I
right?
considered that, it's so many lives. My little girl Ellie's life, her life would be radically different
Mm.
if I didn't say I can do this. Everything would be changed. My life would be different if, we can't our way through life. And I want to send this message. This is a Christ-centric audience that you're talking to here. I can't, followed by any other words, is the most atheistic thing you could ever say. You're literally taking
Mm.
the God power component right out of your life by saying I can't. Analyze that for a minute.
That's a very unique perspective. I've never heard that put that way.
I mean, that's what this is. We
Wow.
have to believe in the power of God. The math doesn't add up when you consider this.
Mm.
This is the Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 principle. You've got to trust in the Lord with all of your heart and not lean in your own understanding, because there's going to be so many things that don't make sense that God's telling you to go do this.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's there. Wow. That's not something you put together on a regular basis. That's really something.
Well, I mean, I
I love it.
hope it stretches people into their thinking. The idea, the phraseology, I can't, is what keeps people in the smallness of what they feel life is currently. There's so much more to explore and experience. And it really just takes the courage to say, let's see what's possible. Let's venture into, let's take one step forward. You don't have to know how. In fact, Les Brown, I don't know if you're familiar with who Les Brown is,
Oh
but
yeah.
Les Brown has this phenomenal quote. He says this: how is none of your business. Don't ask how. How is none of your business. Let me pull a quote up here. He says, don't ask how. How is none of your business. When it comes to reaching your goals, you need to make a commitment. And once you make it, life will give you answers. You see, we're stuck trying to figure out how before we even take a first step. And our job isn't to figure out how. Our job is to say, I wonder if it's possible, and then move.
Right. That's why people like Gary Vee are always touting the messy action. It's
Yeah,
like you
for
just
sure.
have to start. You got to do
Yep.
something,
Anything.
and you figure it out on the way down, so to speak, after you
I
jump.
mean, the best way to write a book is just start writing words, and you
Exactly.
figure it out as you go.
100%. And you're working on one of those, I know. So
Yes,
we
sir.
can't talk about it, but coming soon, folks. All right, and
Right, right.
we'll definitely pub it when it comes out. But love that. That's unique because you hear all the time people talking about not to say can't and don't sell yourself short. I've never heard it connected that way,
Yeah,
and that's very powerful.
it
Very
really is. It's
powerful.
life-changing when you conceptualize the idea of, atheism. I don't believe in a power of God. I don't even believe in God by declaring I can't do this. Well, you're also saying neither can he.
Well, so this is the sort of the crux of your coaching program. I'm assuming, it's that it's based on this and principles like this. Tell us about, what you do there.
It really is. And honestly, my coaching centers around clarity and possibility. I find that clients, whoever they are, I don't care who they are, what their story is, they'll come to me and say, hey, I want to figure out how to maximize income or grow something like this and that. And then we get into it and we might talk about what they said they wanted to discuss. It really comes down to three different things that they're looking for. Clarity, they want to know exactly what I'm created to do. And then a combination of two other things. They want to be able to figure out, how do I get more time? Time is that finite source.
Right.
And yet we spend so much of it on things that we don't really like, right? So how do I buy my time back and get to a spot where I don't feel like I'm at the mercy of all these other things I have to do or someone else's command or control of my life? How do I get my time back? They also want to know, how do I make my life more significant? How do I leave a lasting impact that's larger than me? They want to know that. And I want to help them figure that out. It really comes down to the power of your own potential. So let's drill into it. Let's investigate it. My thesis has become this, and I came up with this after I left pastoring, but Your future is defined by the questions you are willing to answer. So let's answer some really good questions. Let's go after it.
Nice. Very true. Um, I love all this. On this program, we do talk a lot about the role of husbands, fathers. You're
Mhm.
both. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Many times over on the father
Yeah.
part. Um, the In terms of what you've learned through
Yeah.
your travels, through your coaching, through being called, multiple times to um, these paths. What uh, what do you find is one of the biggest issues for fathers and husbands? Guys who are trying to live life, just get through the regularness of life,
Right.
right? The regularness of the day, and are feeling beat down by
Mhm.
society, and they're trying to live a God-fearing life. They're trying to do the right thing. What do you say to those guys who are just feeling like they're at the end of the rope every single day? How do you keep on going? And what have you picked up in your travels that might help some of these guys who listen, today to get back up tomorrow?
Yeah. I think that's a really good question. It's, again, go back to that statement I just made. Your future is defined by the questions you're willing to answer. Ask
Mhm.
the question. What really should my life be looking like? What do I need to be about? One of the things that I have discovered in my process is that most of our mentality, most of our thinking is centered around fear components. We're afraid. We're afraid that if I don't do this, then that won't happen. Or if I don't show up, then I'm going to lose out. And most of it centers around financial components, right? And so we're afraid that we need to constantly be making, whoever the boss is, we got to make them happy. We got to keep them satisfied. Otherwise, I could lose out.
Right.
Um, it struck me one time. I was on a missions trip, interacting with some people, and this line came to me, this idea. But do you realize that we trust and fear in our employer more than we trust and fear in our Savior?
I'm sure that's true.
Oh
I'm
my
sure that's
gosh.
true more often than not. Yeah.
I mean, because at any given moment they can demand something of you, and then they have you as a hostage, right?
Right.
If you don't do this, then I'm going to you're going to lose your job or whatever. And so we actually end up taking better care of our employers than we do our families. What advice would I give to a husband and a father today? Look at the significance of your position as a husband and a father as way more important than your position as in a workplace or a provider. I mean, the Lord said that He would take care of you. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And then He said, like what Matthew in Matthew, I know that you have need of these things. And so his provision is, I joke with people all the time, like the Lord today, the Lord provided our daily tacos. I say that all the time. And that's the mentality. Our table has never been empty. And he has just always provided in ways that we never would have imagined. And I remember thinking, like, in this moment of significance, like men are created for work, right? We are created for purpose. It's biblical. Genesis chapter 1 or 2, he puts Adam to work. He gives him a job. And that's where he finds significance and value and all these things. So I've had to analyze over the last 21 months on days that I don't have work to do. What am I supposed to do? And it just kind of struck me one day, you know what? My kids are right in front of me. Maybe they're my purpose today. Maybe the Lord didn't give me a client to work with because I need to just focus on my kids. And so, just to be really, really gut level honest with you, my son, Austin, my oldest son, came to me when he was 15 and a half years old, and he said, Dad, I want to start a business. This is the same time that I quit my job and I'm getting ready to start my own business and whatever. He comes to me and says, Dad, I want to start a business. I was like, okay, what kind of business do you want to start? Car washing. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Like, I don't like to spend 10 minutes or $10 washing my car, but my son over here is like, he wants to wash cars. And I know what this is going to mean for me. He's going to get a client and I'm going to have to load him up and take him over, drive him to wherever at. And he's going to have to, he's going to do his thing. And we did that for a little while. My son is 17 years old right now. So he started this a year and a half ago. He now owns a company van. He has made over $35,000 this year alone running a car detail business. And to be honest with you, he's earned more money than me. And
That's so cool.
from a from a success principle, I have to really keep in check that this isn't about dollars and cents. This is about significance and value. And I I mean, I'll stand back and be my son's cheerleader all day long if that's what the Lord provides for me today. And I am elated to see and experience what God is doing in his heart and in his life through, some little moments of success.
Well, and as a father, that's really what we want. We want our
Oh my
kids
gosh, yeah.
to, pass us by. We want them to exceed us. We want them to go out and do better than we did. That's
100%.
the whole point of raising them to do what they do. And I mean, that hits home for me. I've got, two sons that both are entrepreneurs and both definitely out earn me on a regular basis. But I get to sit in the back and be like, yes, go for it. That's
Yeah,
fantastic. They're always
100%.
calling me with their wins going, man, I got another one, and they'll be
Yes,
out there going, man, I had, 15 sales this week, but man, I'm getting 20 next week. And they'll call me back
yeah,
and go, I got 23 this week, and you're just like, you get to just be their cheerleader and be proud that you helped build that,
exactly.
which is
100%.
so cool. It's the goal.
It's the
So
goal. It really is. I couldn't be more proud. I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, so he goes after high-end cars. He's a supercar detailer. And uh, 3 or 4 months ago, he booked a Lamborghini. And honestly, he had to drive 2 hours to get there, to get to where this client was. But he shows up, and this guy, this young real estate guy, throws him the keys to his Lamborghini and tells him, hey, back it out of the garage and do whatever you need to do. So here's my son driving a Lamborghini. I told him, I was like, bro, you better not say a word to your insurance company because you're not authorized to do that.
right. That's probably not covered under his commercial liability. Yeah, no. Oh my word. I've never even touched a Lamborghini. That's
No, right?
fantastic for him. He's backing it out, probably taking it for a spin,
Seriously,
make sure it looks good. Oh, that's
for real, right?
great.
Wind through his hair. No, no, no.
I mean, that's at 17. So what's he planning on expanding and hiring guys under him and,
He
franchising out? I
is.
mean, what?
He's looking at hiring somebody else. He's got a fleet now. He's working on a fleet of cars. Somebody hired him to do that. He's worked for a couple of car dealers. And I'll be honest with you, his next step is he wants to own a duplex. He wants to get into the rental field and
Ah,
start doing some passive income. I'll be honest, like, man, if I was 17-year-old and asking those questions, I'd be a lot different in life than I am today.
I hear you. I hear that loud. I know. My son was sitting there cheering because Bitcoin went up as high as it went up, I guess, in the last 2 weeks. And
Okay.
he keeps sending me texts going, my Bitcoin exploded. It went from here to here. And I'm like,
Cool.
congratulations. I don't even know what Bitcoin really is at this point, and he's just like, dancing in the street over there.
Yep.
So I love that story. That's
I
and
love it.
yeah, that says an awful lot about what you instilled in him. You know what I mean? You and your wife and how you raised
Yeah.
him and the beliefs you put in him and everything else. Plus, if you weren't doing it, would he have had the courage to go do it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. I would hope, but we took a different phase of life. We took Romans 12:2, and we really took it to heart. Romans 12:2, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the power of by the pattern. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, right? Well, there's a lot of patterns of our world that we think are requirements. You have to do it this way. Mm, no, you don't. You just gotta, right? Your future is defined by the questions you're willing to answer. So start asking some questions. Why is it that way? And so we took that to education and we took our kids out of the school system and started giving them the freedom to be able to ask some different questions and experience some different outcomes. And I think that's where Austin came up with the idea is he had time and he had desire and he opportunity. He had us believing in him. Don't be mistaken by this. I haven't given him a dollar for it. This was all out of his own pocket. He went after this himself. And I think kids have to learn that way. They have to dabble in success and failure on their own. We're out there trying to make sure that they don't have a tough time or they don't screw up anything. They need to screw it up. They need to be in the throes of desperation because in desperation is where you develop the best. It's
Right.
where the best significant movement comes from.
That's great. One of the sort of the tenets of our program, one of the things we say a lot is, the job of a father and a husband is very basic. It's to, protect, provide, and lead.
Yeah.
And guys always get the protect and the provide part. They always understand that part. And the part that a lot of guys really have a hard time with is understanding that what leading means.
Right.
And it's not just giving orders or giving direction. It's every single thing you do in your life, every decision you make, because they watch them
Yes.
all and they see
Yes.
them all. And it sounds to me like, you've done one heck of a job in leading, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you. To just piggyback off of that, I wanted to part of the like that story that I told about my daughter and the I can't mentality. The longer version of it includes a little bit of that. And in that story, I talk about how we teach. There's two components, two levels of teaching: intentional and unintentional. Intentional teaching is what you think it is. It's education. It's the course that you take or the school system that you go through or whatever. And that really only comprises about 10 to 15% of what we learn. Everything else, 85, 90% of your education comes through unintentional moments. Well, where are your unintentional moments? It's the it's the conversation that happens at the dinner table. It's the moments that you're actually demonstrating to your family when you're unguarded and you're leading them, whether you know it or not. You're teaching them how to live life, and that's where they learn. And honestly, think about how much more power and ability they would have if you took some of these unintentional moments and you made them intentional. And you actually decided, man, I have something I want them to learn, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
So powerful.
definitely. Well, wow. Gosh, I have kept you quite a while. I really appreciate your time. You've probably got 15 appointments after this. I know you had an interview before me, so I'm glad though, because you clearly came in here ready to rock and roll. So you got
Thank you.
warmed up with somebody else's podcast and you came on here ready
Man, I
to
stay
dance.
ready. I
That
stay
was
ready. I'm ready to go.
just beautiful for moment one. Let me go over just a couple of quick things. The the podcast is available for everybody on all the normal platforms. Seems like I know I checked it out. I listened to some stuff.
Yes, sir.
And that's the Pastors Thriving podcast, of course. And then how do these folks reach you if they
Yeah,
want to,
sure.
talk to you, look into coaching programs, anything else?
Yeah, so my name is my website. KevinElworth.live is my website. And I always have like a, book a call here thing. And a lot of people, that's a barrier. Man, I don't want to get personal enough to talk on the phone with somebody. Don't, your future, what did I say? Success is found on the other side of yes. What do you have to lose? A conversation with a coach to be able to figure out where are you stuck and where do you want to go next?
Right.
So it's right there. Push the button, schedule a call. Let's jump on a call and figure out where you're at. That's it.
Okay. That's the best way for them to reach you right there.
Yep.
Okay. And I can attest. I mean, you and I had our initial call. You're not a tough guy to talk to. You know
No.
what I mean? You're very laid
Likewise.
back. Yeah, well, I appreciate it. You're not pushy. You're not some salesman guy. I mean, you're definitely authentic and just there to help. So I mean, I hope that people do take you up on that and contact you. So, all right. Any parting words for our audience?
I think I've said enough, my friend. This has been good. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your show. And yeah,
Well, thank you for that. It's been a pleasure having you on. I think you're perfect for our audience. I think there's going to be a few people who have learned something today, or at least taken away how to look at something a little different. So, thanks for that.
thank you.
All right, folks, this has been another episode of the Power Man Podcast. You guys all know how we do things here. You guys know what we're trying to do. What we're doing here is all about being, a better man, a better father, a better husband, being better tomorrow than we are today. It all starts with one single step. None of us are trying to go through a Rocky montage and knock everything out and transform our lives in 5 minutes. It took a long time to get where we are. It's going to take a little bit of time to get to where we want to be, but
Mhm.
you're worth it. You're worth the work, and you just got to believe it. Until next time.